Hello again, my archaeologist friend. We are friends now, right? I mean, you know all about me. Well, maybe not everything, but we've been through a lot together so far, so it has to make us friends. The last time I pulled out this tape recorder, I was feeling maybe not happy, but pretty close to it. Because, let's face it, I'm not a nomad. Yeah, okay, I've discovered that I can live off the land, more or less, if I have to. I can and have walked long distances to move from place to place to find some modicum of safety. I've slept out underneath the stars with nothing more than my backpack for a pillow. I learned to set up a decent shelter when the rain is too much. I can do all of this. And even though probably both I and Shizo don't give me a lot of credit for it, I have to admit, I have become a lot tougher than I thought I ever could be. But that doesn't change anything. I'm just not a nomad. I want a place where I can stay and feel safe. Or at least as safe as a person can be these days. I want security. I want a purpose. I can't believe I'm saying this considering how introverted I've always been, but I want people. And now, everything feels uncertain. I thought for a moment we were finally somewhere that we might could settle down, find my place. But I already called it. It all depends on Shizo. I'm getting a little tired of my life depending on Shizo. Okay, I started rambling, and you don't even know all that's happened. So, we walked into town the other day to fill up on water. And there was this group there getting ready to go to a quarry or something to gather stone to place a new flagpole. They wanted to claim a new building because we've pretty much run out of room in all the other buildings. Hence the reason Shizo and I ended up having to share a room. Anyway, I'm not sure if we got volunteered or voluntold. I suppose they're the same thing. But either way, the doctor, Shizo, James, and I ended up heading off to go do the job. And yeah, I wasn't super excited, but I remembered that Hans told us we had to pull our own weight, so I figured it was time to play my part in the community. James and Shizo just can't be trusted together. When those two are close together, the ball busting begins. Forgive my language. And this doctor guy just didn't even seem to understand sarcasm or joking. So yeah, the doctor never stood a chance. What starting out as kidding just continually got worse until it just went way too far. Though all of that was literally the least of our problems. On the way, we ran smack into a bear, and I was terrified. I just knew this was going to be how we all died. But I grabbed my gun and I started firing anyway. The first one went down, and then the second was just right on top of James before I even had a chance to react. But James just single-handedly killed it. I literally have no idea how we survived that. It was wild. We finally made it to the quarry, which was actually down under this big factory or something. I'm not really sure what it was, but James seemed to know exactly where he was going. Once we got down inside of it, it was so dark and very scary. It was not impossible to imagine getting lost and forgotten down there. But we gathered our stone, and even though I think it was probably just me and James collecting it, I saw Shizo working one time, but that's only when he grabbed my pickaxe. I'm not even sure what the doctor did besides tell us to hurry. All I know is I was hot and tired and loaded down with heavy rocks, still shaking after the bears, and just really starting to lose my patience. Up until this point, I hadn't really said too much. It's not like you can talk Shizo and James into not teasing people relentlessly, so there was no point in really trying, but I was mad and I was just losing my filter, and it didn't get any better from there. I'd like to assume that it was accidental, but maybe it was on purpose after all the ribbing he'd been getting, but the doctor pushed Shizo down the ladder and ended up hurting his leg. Shizo kept hollering about it was broken, but it was probably just a bad sprain. Anyway, that's beside the point. This guy claims he's a doctor, but just tosses supplies at Shizu and tells him to make a splint. Like, what kind of doctor is he that he won't help someone that's injured? Especially when he helped injure. I was so mad, but James just stepped in once again and took care of everything. And it wouldn't be the last time either. On the way back, the doctor kept running off ahead of us, claiming it was to scout ahead, but Shizu needed help. James or I could have scouted ahead. Though I suppose I'm glad now that I wasn't leading the pack when the third bear attacked. Smacked the doctor so hard, knocked him right out, but James just took action again and killed the bear and then saved the doctor's life. You would think any of that, anything that happened all day, would leave the doctor appreciative or grateful. Something, but no. As soon as he was steady enough to continue, he starts spouting off about how horrible we all are, the worst kind of people, that he took the bear attack for us. Just making himself into some kind of a martyr. Didn't even bother to thank James for all he'd done. I was furious. I'm still furious. And I have to admit it that when I get that angry, I start crying, which at that moment was a very, very bad thing to have happen. I took a moment to myself and then was suddenly completely alone in the dark woods. No clue where anyone else was. I've never been so scared. My heart still pounds just thinking about it. So, I ran in the direction I thought might be home and just kept going. Even when the weight of the stones became too much, I just kept going until I finally recognized my surroundings enough to duck into an abandoned building that looked like I was close to Cushville. Either way, I had to stop because I was having a heart attack. The more I'm reliving all of this, it just makes me think. And I've had nothing but lots of alone time the past few days to think. And I'm still feeling just so conflicted. Anyway, we made it back to town. The flagpole is up. The whole terrible story was told to Hans and it was taken care of. You'd think that was it. All the bad stuff was over. But that's where you would be wrong. After all was said and done, I finally made it back to the apartment. I just left everybody else behind because I needed just a moment to decompress and maybe try to let go of some of the anger that was just boiling in my blood. When all of a sudden Shizu just bolts in through the door and starts grabbing his stuff out of his locker and saying he's got to leave. And he was trying to tell me what was happening, but I really didn't understand it all. Something about Morty and drugs, and he kept saying snitches and, forgive my language, bitches, and that they were coming after him. I wasn't sure who they was. He didn't even look back. He didn't give me a chance to clarify or figure out what was going on. He was just gone. And it wasn't too long after that there was a mob of people in the front of the building saying Shizu needed to come out, that they needed to talk to him. Some of them even sounded a little drunk. And when I said he wasn't there, they just started demanding that I come down, and that was not happening. But thankfully, Richard came over and ran them off. But this just had me even more shaking, and wondering maybe I should have just left and went with Shizu and just figured it out along the way. And did the night get any better from there, you might ask? No, it didn't. Hans was out in the hallway yelling for me. So I went out to see what was going on, and suddenly I'm being frisked. Frisked. I'm not saying that right, but you know what I mean. They were like taking stuff out of my bags and my guns and whatever. And then they start questioning me about Shizu, being told that I might be held accountable for what he did. And I'm not even sure what he did. At that point, I now know that he was trying to sell drugs or something, and Morty's running around telling everyone that Shizu threatened his life and beat him up. They brought James over too, started questioning him and telling him that he's going to have to take some of the blame. I guess guilty by association. And then James he threw Shizu under the bus. Someone I thought was Shizu's friend. He starts telling Hans how selfish he is and how he doesn't care about anybody but himself. And I know how Shizzo can be, but hearing all of that said, I just got so mad. And once Hans finally let us go, I just told James to leave, that I didn't want to talk to him after all that he just said about his friends. I know Shizzo's impulsive. I know he doesn't always think through. He's gotten us in trouble before, but I know he can be self-centered, but let's face it, I know he can be a flat-out jerk. Even to me. But I also know he's been there for me. He's saved my life before. He's kept me fed and safe. And whatever else he's done, I don't want them to hurt him. Or worse. And it's just like James didn't even care. Like, all he was thinking about was them not looking too closely at him. I just don't know what to think anymore.